Hey, welcome back to the Brew channel. I'm Mike.
And I'm Joey.
Today we're going to be going through a 5-gallon all grain brown ale from Morebeer. So sit back, relax, and we'll show you how it's done.
Okay, so on today's episode, we're going to need a few things. We're going to need 4 ounces of Baird's chocolate malts, a total of 8 ounces of Breeze caramel malts, a total of 7 pounds of the crisp number 19 Maris Otter grains, an ounce of the Northern Brewer pellet hops, 1 ounce of the Willamette pellet hops, and 1 pack of the Safe Ale S04 dry yeast. Okay, so we're going to need a few things. We're going to need a 12-quart stock pot, Wort Chiller, a mixing spoon, a spray bottle for easy sanitation.
You'll also need your measuring container, a hydrometer, a fermenter with airlock, 5.5 gallons of water for the strike, and then 1 gallon for the sparge. You'll also need a thermometer. And something extra that we're using today, we're using a clarifier. And we're also using some yeast nutrients. And today, since we're doing an all grain batch, we'll be using the Anvil Foundry. All right, so we got our 5.5 gallons of strike water up to 152. And this took about an hour with the Anvil at 120 volts. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull this off and we're gonna start the mash in. So as of now, as we're slowly pouring these grains in, we're going to keep on mixing because we don't want to have any clumps or we don't want to have a stuck mash once we start the circulation. And then once we start adding in all our grain, the temperature is going to drop. It usually drops about 5 degrees. To 8 degrees, and whatever it drops to, we're going to then set our temperature to. All right, so we did our mash in. Now we're going to get ready for the pre-circulation. And essentially, it went down to 148. So we're going to set the unit to 148. And then we're going to keep our power at about 50%. And we're going to let this sit for 10 minutes.
Okay, so now we're going to start the circulation process, and we're going to set the temperature to 152, and we want the power between 50 to 80%. For today, we're going to have it at 50 for now, but we may adjust it, and the reason why is because we don't want the fan constantly running. Yes, first off, we want to do a quick stir. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to loosen up the grains. We're going to open up the valve. And we're going to turn it on. And we want this to a slow medium pour, which is, I would say that's about right? Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so this is going to go for 1 hour. We're going to stir every 15 minutes. And at the last 20 minutes of the hour, we're going to start our sparge water.
So as we're finishing up and we're getting ready for the sparge, we already got the Anvil up to 170. And we got our sparge water to 170. Then what you want to do is let the grains sit for 10 minutes. And what that's going to allow you to do is let all the grains kind of sit there and the sugars are going to get loosened up. So as we get our sparge water, it's going to allow us to easily extract all the extra sugar that's sitting in there. And as you can see, the Anvil makes it easy with all these holes to disperse the water evenly. So we're going to use up all the rest of the sparge water. We're going to let it sit and drain for a few minutes. So after that, we're then going to start going into the boiling process. All right, so we hit our boil point. So we're going to let this boil for an hour. And at the start of the boil, we're going to go ahead and add our Northern Brewer, 1 ounce. Toss these in. At the 45-minute mark of the boil, we're going to add in our Wort Chiller so it can start getting sanitized. At the last 10 minutes, we're going to add our yeast nutrients. At the last 5 minutes, we're going to add half of the Wort clarifier. Okay, so now that the boiling's done, we have our wort. We're going to go ahead and add the 1 ounce of Willamette. at the last minute of the boil. So we're going to go ahead, now that we finished off the boil, we're going to turn off the unit and we're going to turn on the cold water, let it run through the Wort Chiller, and we're going to bring it down to the 60s so when we pitch the yeast can be happy, because if we had the temperature too high, it's going to end up killing the yeast. Okay, so we're going to start off by transferring the wort into the fermenter. And now that we're done with it, we're going to go ahead and take a quick gravity reading. And it looks like our first gravity reading is 1.04. So the next thing we're going to go and do is get ready to pitch the yeast. So we're going to first sanitize the packet, and we're going to sanitize the scissors, and now we're going to dump it in. Now that we have all the yeast within the fermenter, we're going to go ahead and start shaking up the fermenter, which that would be this aeration process. So this is basically adding oxygen to the wort. At a high level, this is allowing the yeast to grow and multiply so the new yeast can eat up the sugar and create alcohol. One thing you need to be aware of as we're shaking this, you don't want to shake for too long because this can cause oxidation, which will add some off flavors to your beer. And you can tell if you have any kind of off flavors from oxidation because your beer will end up tasting like cardboard. Alrighty, so congratulations, you finished up the brown ale. So the last steps you're going to want to take is you're going to take this to a cool, dark place, and you're going to let it sit for 2 weeks so it can ferment. And then after that 2 weeks, you're going to go ahead and bottle it, and then let it sit for another 2 weeks. And once that's done, beer's ready to go. Just throw it in the fridge and you can drink it the next day. So thank you for taking the time for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Crisp number 19, there's Otter grains. All right, now it's stuck in my head.